The next thing we want to look at is defining religion. Defining religion might be easy enough. You could go to any textbook or any dictionary, rather, and you will get several definitions of religion. You'll get a primary definition that likely would be good, would be something you could work with. But many of these definitions, if you start poking at them, run into problems. What we would like to call a religion, or maybe not like to call a religion, would often go against a primary dictionary definition. So I don't want everyone just assuming right off that we all have a really good definition for what religion is. I think that it is important that we have a definition because we need to limit the scope of what we're talking about in order to talk about it relevantly. Just like if you're going to paint a piece of art, the first thing you have to do is have a canvas, right? You have to have limits so that you can say this is where the art piece begins and ends. The easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is not to have everyone go pick their favorite definition of religion, but to come to what's called an operational definition. An operational definition means that you could find other competing definitions, and not everyone would use this primary definition. In fact, I would say maybe not so many people would use this exact definition if you asked them. But it will operate as the authoritative definition for the purposes of this class. So when I refer to religion, or when you refer to religion, let's try to keep it within this definition. And the definition that I have chosen is anything that addresses human interaction with the sacred. Notice that the sacred is capitalized, and that's because I mean something rather specific. So what is the sacred? The sacred, and again this is an operational definition, the sacred is anything that has to do with ultimate realities. I really should have almost put a period there. The sacred is anything that has to do with ultimate realities, but especially when we're citing forces or realities beyond the clearly visible or scientifically verifiable. In other words, there's nothing really sacred that, if you take, let's say, baking powder and you pour water on it and you shake it up, that it will spew, right? Like an old scientific volcano experiment, right? That's not dealing with the sacred. That has to do with the scientifically verifiable. You can break down to the chemical level, to the atomic level, why that interaction caused what it caused. Things that are immediately verifiable, citable, are not really within the realm of the sacred. The sacred has to do with the intuition or belief or attempt to interact with something that is beyond the obvious, beyond the scientific worldview. Now, this leads many people to say there is no sacred. It's all made up. It's something that human beings invent because we would prefer that there's some kind of sacred reality. Whether or not that's true, I will leave up to you. There are arguments both ways, and we could spend a great deal of time talking about, do you believe in God? What is God? What kind of God do you or do you not believe in? This course is not going to attempt to answer those questions. Whether or not you believe in a sacred reality is really something you have to decide for yourself. But the fact that many people, or the fact is that many people do believe in a sacred reality of some sort. And by extension, they attempt to interact with that sacred reality. They attempt to participate in what their intuition or belief about the sacred is. Now, I want to clarify as well that there can be secular sacred truths. In other words, a lot of times when we talk about religions, we tend to think, okay, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, there has to be something sort of spiritual in it. And, there are times that secular worldviews, like, let's say communism or state secularism, or even our own capitalism and sort of libertarianism, invoke or try to appeal to secular sacred truths. One of the concepts that I think Americans can relate to the most easily that's a secular sacred truth are rights. We're very insistent, most of our population is very insistent that we have rights. Now, a truly cynical person would tell you we don't have rights. We only have whatever rights our government chooses to give us and protect. And there's no such thing as a true right. But if you read some of the founding documents of the country, such as the Declaration of Independence, it's very clear that the founders did believe in a kind of sacred truth of rights, and they even tried to root it in a form of godliness that we might call deism, the idea that God is a great clockmaker and God has made the system, and we through reason can understand the system. If you read the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson says that we believe that men were created, by which he means men and women, were created with certain unalienable rights. In other words, they cannot be made alien. They cannot be disenfranchised from those rights. And he goes on to say that God has created people with these inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's something very similar from the French Revolution, which is just before the American, or just after, rather, the American Revolution, where the hallmark of the revolution was life, liberty, and fraternity, or brotherhood, basically. Liberty, equality, and fraternity. So basically saying that people are inherently, the true state inherently is one that promotes these three virtues. That people should be liberty, people should be relatively free citizens, free within boundaries, but basically free citizens. They shouldn't be ruled by an autocrat or monarch, as the French had been. Equality, that in some senses, particularly legal senses, people are equal. There are some that are more equal than others, which was the old noble system. And fraternity, there should be a brotherhood of citizens. There should be a kind of fraternal order, a common cause. So these are examples of secular sacred truths. And I think that they're more pronounced in the way we think than a lot of us would like to admit. I don't know if we would necessarily then call those systems religious systems, but there is a semi-religious aspect to those secular worldviews that would broadly fall into the domain of the sacred. There are certain things that those worldviews hold sacred. Now, I'd like to break down the sacred into three key parts. And whenever we look at any religious system, we're going to look at these. We're going to see that all of the systems have these three key parts. Almost by definition, if you are a sacred system, you have these three key parts. The first is the human condition. This relates to the question of who am I, or who are we? What is the human person? What are we like? What defines us as human beings? What is our struggle? And I really should have even added that. What is our basic struggle? The part two is the ultimate destination. Once we know who we are and what our struggle is, we also come to know where we are going. Where does that struggle ultimately lead? And part three is the path of transformation. How do we get through the human condition to our ultimate destination. And generally, a religious system is offering a path of transformation. So these three things are linked. The human condition is the proposal that a sacred system makes about who we are, what defines us. And then, by extension of the human condition, we are headed somewhere. Okay, whether that's heaven, hell, reincarnation, good rebirth, bad rebirth, whatever. There's some kind of end to the human condition because we do die. And how we get there, positively or negatively, is the way that the human condition is transformed by this faith. In other words, a religion that is purely revelatory, like here's what people are like and here's where they're going, that's irrelevant. Why would we even record that if there's no path of transformation, right? If there's no way that we can participate in altering our ultimate destination or altering, therefore, our human condition. So there's always this path of transformation, a way to morph into a different kind of person.